This happened just a few weeks ago when I stopped by a gas station late at night. I think it was around 10:30 p.m., and I had just finished hanging out with some friends. I wasn't planning on staying out late, but I realized I needed gas for the next morning, so I decided to stop at the nearest station. When I pulled in, the place was pretty empty except for one other car parked near the convenience store entrance. It wasn't unusual for this time of night, but something about that car caught my eye. It was an old, beat-up sedan, and the headlights were still on. I didn't think much of it at first and parked at one of the pumps. As I got out of my car, I noticed a man standing by the sedan. He looked like he was in his late 40s, with messy hair and wearing a jacket that looked way too heavy for the weather. It wasn't freezing or anything, but he had it zipped all the way up to his neck. He seemed to be looking at something inside the store. I started pumping my gas, and while I waited, I glanced back at the man. He hadn't moved. He just stood there, staring through the glass doors of the store. It wasn't like he was waiting for someone. He looked more like he was watching something, or someone. I couldn't help but feel a little uneasy, but I brushed it off. I told myself, maybe he's just lost in thought or waiting for someone inside. After finishing up at the pump, I decided to head into the store to grab a snack. As I walked past the man, I gave him a quick nod, but he didn't respond. His eyes didn't even flicker toward me. It was as if I wasn't there. When I stepped inside, the cashier greeted me with a friendly, "Hey, how's it going?" I smiled and said, "Good, thanks," before heading to the snack aisle. The store was small, so it didn't take me long to find what I wanted. As I grabbed a bag of chips, I noticed something strange out of the corner of my eye. Through the glass doors, I saw the man from outside, and now he was pacing back and forth in front of the store. His movements were slow and deliberate, almost like he was waiting for someone to come out. My stomach dropped a little, but I tried to stay calm. I thought, maybe he's just restless or waiting for someone to finish paying inside. When I brought my chips up to the counter, I casually mentioned the man to the cashier. I said something like, "That guy out there seems a little off." The cashier looked out the window, shrugged, and said, "Yeah, we get all kinds around here. Probably nothing to worry about." I nodded, paid for my stuff, and started walking toward the exit. As I pushed open the door, I saw the man standing a few feet away, almost directly in front of my car. He wasn't pacing anymore. He was just standing there, facing me. My heart started racing, but I told myself to act normal. I walked to my car, unlocked it, and got in as quickly as I could. I didn't want to seem scared, but my hands were shaking as I put the key in the ignition. When I glanced up, the man was still standing there, watching me. I thought, okay, this is getting really weird. I started the car and pulled out of the parking lot, trying not to look back. But as I turned onto the main road, I couldn't resist checking my rearview mirror. That's when I saw it. The beat-up sedan from the gas station was pulling out right behind me. At first, I thought it might just be a coincidence. Maybe he was heading in the same direction. But as I drove, I noticed he was sticking close, too close. Every time I turned, he turned. Every time I switched lanes, he did the same. By now, my heart was pounding. I thought about pulling into a police station, but I wasn't sure if there was one nearby. Instead, I decided to test him. I took a random turn down a quiet street, one I'd never normally take. And sure enough, the sedan followed. At this point, I knew I couldn't go home. I didn't want this guy knowing where I lived. So, I did the only thing I could think of. I drove to a well-lit parking lot near a 24-hour diner. When I pulled in, I parked my car and stayed inside, watching the sedan. The man didn't park. Instead, he drove slowly past me, his eyes locked on mine as he went by. It felt like he was trying to intimidate me, and it was working. After he passed, I stayed in the parking lot for a few more minutes, trying to calm down. Eventually, I decided to go into the diner. I figured it would be safer to be around other people. The staff greeted me as I walked in, and I took a seat by the window where I could see my car. I ordered a coffee and tried to act like everything was normal, but I kept glancing outside. About 10 minutes later, I saw the sedan again. This time, it was parked across the street, and the man was sitting in the driver's seat. staring straight at the diner. I couldn't take it anymore. I asked the waitress if I could use the phone and call the police. I told them everything: the gas station, the man following me, and how he was now parked outside. They said they'd send someone over, but in the meantime, they told me to stay inside and not confront the man. About 15 minutes later, a patrol car pulled into the parking lot. The officers came in, and I pointed out the sedan. They went outside to talk to the man, and I watched from the window as they questioned him. After a few minutes, one of the officers came back into the diner. He told me the man claimed he didn't know me and that he wasn't following me. He said he was just driving around. The officer assured me they'd keep an eye on him and offered to escort me home. I agreed, and they followed me all the way back to my house. I never saw the man or the sedan again after that, but the whole experience still haunts me.